Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to people around the world. This is Martin Hubel, your host of the DB2Night Show. And today we have two special guests with us. We have Mariella Wyrock of the DB2 ZOS development, IBM Distinguished Engineer, and also a past guest of the DB2Night Show. And she is joined today by Kendrick Wren, development lead for DB2 ZOS, and he is actually just living pretty close to where I am here in Toronto, but working on Z. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Okay, let me get through this. Get through the introductions and things like that, and then I'll turn things back over to you both, and we'll get on with the presentation. Here's our social media page as always. The main things to follow is our hashtag DB2Night on Twitter. And if you like, the replays are now available on YouTube in addition to the downloadable WMV and MP4 formats. Here's our famous disclaimer of all of the copyright information. We respect people's copyrights. We are recording it. We'll make that available along with the handout for the session. And we thank DBI, our founding sponsor of the DB2Night Show, for making this platform available. And here's our famous updates. Our next show will be on DB2LUW, and we're pleased to have the executive director of the IBM Toronto Lab. Has a very long title. I'm not sure I can read all of that. It's Piotr Mirsajewski of the Toronto Lab. He's the owner of everything in Toronto here. And the next one after that for DB2Z is Steen Rasmussen of Broadcom talking about an approach to schema changes. So we've got that coming up on May the 21st, 2 weeks after our next show, which is in 2 weeks. As always, our founding sponsor of the DB2Night Show has an online demo that you can watch. If you follow that link, they'd be happy to have you look at their, show their product to you, and in addition, they'll send you a gift card for doing so. Our winner last week for the DB2Night Show was Chuck Cozen of AAA California. It seems we've done an awful lot of AAAs from Texas to Missouri to California and others that watch the DB2Night Show on a regular basis. Congratulations, Chuck. I know you're a regular attendee, and we appreciate having you here. And our sponsors again, DBI and yours truly, Martin Hubel Consulting. And today I put in back in Charlie's picture. We were looking at Charlie before the show. He was up on my lap getting cookies. He's now mostly blind. He's got a little bit of sight left, but he's got pinhole cataracts, which makes it hard for him to see. So sometimes when he's walking around the room, he looks like a Roomba. He just starts bumping into things and changing direction. But he's still there, and he still has his bone from the IBM dinner many years ago. That's the IBM content on the slide, and he's still a good little guy. And all right, we're into polls. I didn't really set these up too well, so I'm only going to do a couple. We're going to look first of all at launching the first poll is, what's your highest version of DB2 in production? The people have a vote on that. And this is really interesting today. We're getting a really high number of people who are on, I'm going to close that off and share that. You notice that we have, most people are on function level 500 or higher. A couple still on version 11. We'll hide that and move on to the next. What DBMSs are you using in your shop? We'll launch this one as always. Find that almost 100% of our people attending the DB2Night Show for DB2 on Z actually have DB2 on Z. And if they're going to have something else, they often have DB2 for LUW. And so I made this question a little simpler, and we have mainly DB2 on Z. We've got people with DB2 for LUW and other DBMSs. And let's see if there's any other questions I have that are worth talking about today. Oh, I think that's probably about it for now. So let me get back to this, and I'll turn things over to you, Mariella. I'll let you take it away.
I will go ahead, and if you give me control over the screen.
Just like that. It's all you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I see your slide deck, so we're good to go.
Perfect. So thank you, Martin, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. Oh, let me just see. My slide just disappeared. Okay. To give us the opportunity to present about a very important topic, and this is how to integrate DB2 for COS database changes into an enterprise DevOps pipeline. There is a huge trend to implement DevOps pipelines in pretty much every enterprise. Interestingly, the DevOps engineering teams are primarily focusing on moving application changes through a DevOps pipeline and do not so much focus on DB2 for COS or database changes in general. So we want to point out that it's actually very important for application that use the database, which is the majority, that application changes go together with the database changes through the pipeline in order to deliver the functionality consistently and fast. So Martin, you already mentioned that Kendrick will actually join me in the presentation. He will actually, he's brave enough to do a live demo of how it works. So before I actually want to share some information that a US insurance company shared with us, why they want to do the integration of database changes in an enterprise DevOps pipeline, because it resonates so well with the goal we have, so that I'm really tempted to share this. So the first one, the first goal that we pretty much hear from every company is they want to enable continuous delivery by mitigating DBA dependencies for database code deployments. So basically breaking the wall between application developers and DBAs and make it one continuous delivery stream. And the second one is to enable self-service option for application developers through automation, meaning if an application developer is ready to check in code, application code, database schema changes or new schema, that by checking in those code changes, the deployment will be triggered automatically, and the code will be integrated automatically, deployed, and potentially also tested automatically. So how is this company approaching this project? It has actually several steps. The first one, integration, integrating DBAs into the DevOps project, and that is actually a huge challenge in a lot of enterprises where the DBAs are somewhat self-contained and not always as open to team up and join in this effort. So a big ask to, if you are a DBA, I think it's really important to team and break walls. to join the DevOps projects in order to make this implementation very smooth. And the second part is actually pretty interesting. While those processes are automated, it provides a perfect opportunity to review the existing DDL processes and maybe modernize them. So you may have DDL processes that are working since 10 years, 20 years, and they may not use all the newest online schema capabilities that are available in DB211 or DB212. So a good opportunity to review those DDL processes before they are automated. And it has definitely a big impact on availability overall. So then, of course, this needs to happen through automation, and it's clearly by partnering with the enterprise DevOps team or the release team. And it should integrate and utilize the DevOps automation tools. And I will discuss a little more what that means, so that this database code deployment will be streamlined together with the application changes through automation. And from an implementation perspective, one part is very important, that the self-service deployment capability for application developers become business as usual. And from a DBA perspective, you are not losing your job. It's actually shifting your role from a manual deployment activity into a more development-focused approach, and actually providing a more value-added service to your company. And development in multiple ways, developing your DBA rules in the tooling, but of course it also frees up time to be a consultant to your application development team as well. So let's go into a description of what we mean by DevOps, enterprise DevOps pipeline. If you look at the software development path, you can map every single software development into those phases. So you start with development, typically in a development environment. And if the code is done, it's checked into a source control management system. And then it goes through a build and packaging for a phase, and it's deployed into the different environment, into a test environment, into a performance environment, into an integration environment, and eventually it will hit production. So if I would map this to even DB2 code, I mean, our DB2 developers develop the code, they check the code into a source control management system, which is today actually Git. And then it goes through a build and packaging. And if you think packaging, user mods, APOR fixes, and PDFs are the packaging that we use. And then, of course, we would deploy it into our system test environment, into performance environment, and production for us in DB2 would be to deliver a PDF to you so you can install it. When we look at this process, there are actually different focus areas. One is continuous integration and continuous delivery, which a lot of companies focus when they start with implementing an enterprise DevOps pipeline. But continuous testing is actually equally important, even it's more a challenge for companies. And then the collaborative tracking and planning is also very important. So you may focus on implementing functionality in the enterprise DevOps pipeline from different angles. Continuous testing, providing test environment automatically and running regression testing or new function testing automatically would be a big improvement to deliver high quality code faster than in the past. And of course, you need to have tooling support. You will say, yeah, we have a source control management system on COS since forever, since 30, 40 years. And we have an development environment, we have test environment. The difference is that the difference is the integration between all of those steps. On the distributed side, there is a different set of tools that evolved over the last years. For example, GitHub is a very typical source control management environment and change management environment. Jenkins or GitLab for the pipeline coordination, SonarQube for quality control, or for release management and deployment. Open code deploy is very common as well. So that is all good, but seeing the strategies that pretty much every company wants to go into a hybrid on-prem and cloud deployment model, it is actually very important to have a single DevOps pipeline with one set of pipeline tools that can support IBM application as well as distributed application, but actually also on-prem or cloud environment, public cloud environment. So a properly engineered DevOps pipeline should support all platforms that are available in your enterprise and should be positioned to deploy on-prem or in the public cloud. And this is also a goal from our perspective. So let's look what that means for DB2 for COS changes. IBM, and conceptually this applies to other tools, but of course we will talk about how this is done with DB2 DevOps experience for COS, how conceptually those activities can be integrated in a DevOps, enterprise-wide DevOps pipeline to automate database changes together with application changes. When you are in this process, you have to look at different roles. Of course, from an application developer perspective, they do not want to open tickets and wait, but actually they want to be able to self-service DBA requests so that they can work on their schedule and meet their deadlines. From a DBA perspective, it's a different goal that you can actually establish and enforce DBA rules and processes. And pretty much every company I talk to, the DBAs have handbooks of rules, of naming convention that a DBA has to check. And in many cases, it's still checking those manually. What is related to it, everything you do manually has a chance of human errors. So by automating it, it's avoiding human errors, and it frees time for more innovative projects in performance analysis, consulting application developers for a proper usage of SQL, well-performing SQL coding, and so on. And then the third role or third persona is actually the DevOps engineer who implements the pipeline and partners with the other two roles. Of course, then, the line of business at the end is a beneficiary because they get functionality much quicker and high quality and can react to the market much faster. So I already mentioned it, you have to look from different roles, and you will see this in the slides and also in the demos that Ken is presenting in a couple of minutes, that we look from the different roles perspective or different personas perspective to deliver on these goals. So from an application developer perspective, DB2 DevOps experience actually allows to propagate syntax changes or DDL changes and integrate those into different target environments, as well as create and delete test DB2 environments for testing fully automatically. And from a DBA perspective, and this is actually the focus in a lot of interaction we have right now, is that the DBA is able to enforce the rules and limitations so that it can ensure that the database at the end is of high quality, because the DBAs all get called out in the middle of the night to fix issues, so they will never let go of enforcing the rules that were developed typically based on some incidents. It allows, DB2 DevOps experience allows to define teams that have different authorities, environments, application components that define a certain application. And it can also, it has a set of APIs to review and give the DBAs a chance to approve certain changes manually or automatically. So what are the pain points that are addressed with this? And you will see that it resonates actually a lot. And those pain points were expressed by application developers and DBAs in calls and workshops we had with quite a number of enterprises now. From an application developer, the most frustrating point is that they have to open a ticket and wait until the ticket is processed, and that time may vary a lot. It interrupts their work, clearly, but it's not just a one-time thing. They have to request those changes for their initial development environment, but for any other environment, to propagate it into an integration environment, performance environment, and eventually into production. And then there may be multiple iterations because there is some information missing, there's a problem. So it can really prolong the period of getting code to the business into production. And from an application developer perspective, they lose momentum. If they wait, they may switch work to a lower priority activity, even because they have to wait for the higher priority work to be done, which causes a lot of frustration. And I think they start looking for alternatives if one environment is not providing it. And I tell you, implementing database changes in DevOps pipeline is not DB2 specific. You see this momentum pretty much with every database today. And from a DBA perspective, manually monitoring those ticket queues is maybe not the most exciting work you can do, and executing many simple DDL changes. I hear from some environments, you know, a couple of hundred DDL changes every day, very repetitive, not so exciting. We already mentioned the room for human error. An interesting part is that because every DBA has his or her own style, it's actually very difficult to enforce standardization, and security changes may not be considered at that point in time. So a lot of things to consider here. Actually, this US insurance company shared their pain points with us, and you see a lot of those themes repeating itself. But additionally, what I thought was very interesting is they actually took the work and collected matrix of the impact. And for example, they determined that the average time it takes for an DBA request to be completed is pretty much 2.5 days. And this is an average, you know, some requests may be turned around in a couple of hours, but others may take a week. And you see this level of disruption. And they did an estimate of how many hours DBAs spend in response to tickets. And you see it's an average of 11,000 tasks per year across different environments. And also a very interesting matrix is that 92% of those requests needed additional clarification, rework to correct errors, and which actually prolongs this turnaround time again. So this is a huge potential for optimization, for streamlining, and hopefully after seeing the demo, you will be convinced that, you know, turning 56 hours into a couple of minutes, it's a huge improvement in productivities for the application developer as well as for the DBA. So now I want to switch into the demo. So what we did is we actually used or extended a demo environment that our peers on the C DevOps side implemented that covers a COBOL application. It's actually the Gen app application. It's a sample application that is delivered with Kix. And we added a database change support, a database change that is required with a COBOL application change, which is very typical. So what we want to show is that as a developer, I can make those application changes and the DDL changes and deploy them together in a pipeline. And from a DBA perspective, the focus is that the developer can do this, and I'm still able to enforce my DB2 standards and rules so that the database change is done in a high quality, so it's not messing up my DB2 system. So you need a couple of information in order to prepare for such an implementation. So the first one is you need to identify the application components, and you actually have to define them in DB2 DevOps experience. So in our concrete example, it's the COBOL source code is a DDL. And of course, then you have packages and DBRMs when you build the application and deploy it. So that is from an application perspective. The next one, you have to understand the roles and responsibility in this process. And you see on the right side an example that we got from a customer. So for example, creating the DDL, an application developer would consult with a data modeler, and that will not go away. you still need to decide from a logical perspective if a column is added to an existing table, if you create a new table. So your proper logical schema or schema design needs to be in place, which then results into a physical schema that then will be implemented in, or can be implemented in the pipeline. And then you see in this example that actually the application developer is responsible for deploying database code changes into the lower region, so into a test environment, for example. So why wouldn't the application developer be able to do it on their terms if the DBA doesn't even have responsibility for that? So you need to, and I'm pretty sure in your environment, those roles and responsibilities are well defined. So those need to be reflected in DB2 DevOps experience team definition. And the third one, which is really, really important, is taking your DBA rules book and step by step implement your rules. For example, your naming convention. On the right side, it shows the naming convention example for a table name, so that it can be enforced automatically. And you will build up incrementally, starting with simple rules, and then it becomes much more complex. And that is the way how your rules will then be enforced and can be enforced automatically. So with that, I actually want to hand over to Ken, who walks you through our demo scenario, and then walks you also through the relevant components in the different tool set for our pipeline implementation. So Ken, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, yes, thanks, Marietta.
I will make Ken the presenter.
Yep.
And,
thank you.
And Ken, you should have a message asking you to become the presenter. You just click on that and it will be you.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, give me a couple seconds. And so the mic asked me to give the permit to let go to meetings to share my screen. It asked me, sorry, I apologize about that. It actually asked me to quit and rejoin.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Mariella, your webcam was on. Could you do magic tricks while Kendrick does that?
Yeah, so maybe
I'll be back in a couple minutes. In a couple of seconds.
So maybe then I can cover the next two slides. So if you give me the sharing.
I'll make you the presenter again. Sorry for this. This is, I think we may have had this once before, but sometimes we're just lucky.
Yeah. Okay. So no problem. So you see on the right side in the top. Oh wait. No, sure. You see the DBA defining the environment, the rules, the application components, and we did this ahead of time, so this is not part of the demo, but of course we could share what we did. So our demo environment actually starts with the developer modifying COBOL code, and in our specific case, we have a telephone number, and we decided that we want to have a country code so the telephone number can be an international number. And we wanted to store the country code in a different column in the same table. And then we will commit this change into our source control management system, into Git, which actually triggers the pipeline execution. And then as part of the pipeline execution, you will go through the build phase as well as through the rules checking that the DBAs defined before, and if the rules are violated, the application developer immediately gets an error and information that something is wrong, so the application developer can react to it, and we will show you this. And then if it's successful, of course, then it's deployed to the target. So can we know when you're
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back. So,
let me give this the best try here. And,
yeah.
Now you should have the.
I assume that you can see my screen now.
Yes, you're.
Okay,
yes,
that's great.
Your screen. Perfect. I'll mute myself again, but be here for questions.
All right, thank you. So yeah, so this chart shows the demo architecture. So in this demo, we use Kik's DB2 application. It's similar to the application for insurance company. So in this demo, we use this shows the component that we use, the tool stack we use in the demo. On the leftmost box, it's IDE, so for developer. So in this demo, we use VS Code plus a couple extensions on VS Code. But the solution or demo we show today does not enforce you to use VS Code. You can use IDZ or other IDE. So the whole pipeline is triggered by the push or pull request against the SDM tools. So which IDE you use doesn't really matter. So once the developers are ready to commit the code into the SM tool, so in this case we use GitHub, but it can be other Git provider like a Bitbucket or GitLab, or even other SM tool like RTC, Subversion, other SM tools. So once the code come into the SM tool, we have a pipeline orchestrator Jenkins server that's monitoring every code coming to the SM, and will kick off the pipeline. So it will extract the source code, the changed code from the GitHub to local, and kick off the build engine to build the code into the binary output, load the module or DBRMs and so on. So then it will coordinate the deployment manager. In this case, we use Urban Code Deploy to import the binary modules into the UCD workstation, and eventually in the deployment process, we invoke DB2 DevOps experience for this product. That we invoke the REST API of the DOE to deploy the schema change. So what it does, it will compare the DDL change with the data objects in the target system, in the catalog of the target system or target environment. So it will figure out the proper deployment plan for the data object change and deploy that. It will involve the DB2 command or the utilities. It will do that for you in the proper sequence as well. And we have a DOE plugin, the green box here, that is consume the DOE API. That's invoked by UCD deployment process to handle the schema change. Following that, the UCD process will also deploy the DBAs. If there's quite a single change, deploy the DBAs, and with the bind card for each target environment. So you could have the different bind card defined for each environment. There's an environment specific thing like a collection ID or qualifier and so on, right? And then after that, the process will also deploy the load module into the proper place. So you can see here in this demo, we use Jenkins as a pipeline orchestrator, but if you use GitLab CI or others, it also works. And we use UCD, Urban Code Deploy, as a deployment tool, but if you use Ansible, use the Bamboo, Puppet, or Chef, as a deployment tool, it also works. So as mentioned earlier, so DOE product is REST API enabled, so it can be consumed by different kinds of consumer products. So so with that, let me switch to my live demo environment. So what you see here is the VS Code editor, and I already have the DB2 extension installed. So give me this icon, and I also have the OpenTree installed. So the DB2 Developer Extension offers you a capability like the syntax highlighting. You can see here my SQL, my DDL is highlighted in the different colors, or the keyword highlighted, and it also does the syntax check. It has a parser embedded, so if I have made some mistake, like for the keyword, it immediately tells me and also give me the suggestion what you should put instead. So similarly for the operator, it offers the COBOL support, COBOL language support, PL1 assembler, and so on. So there's more details that you can find from the VS Code marketplace for the extensions. So I will skip that for now. So in this demo, I pretend myself as developer. So I'm taking the requirement to add a country code to my customer's phone, mobile phone. So after I discuss with my application architect, my data modeler team, or DBAs, and so we set down on the solution. So the first thing I'm going to do is to add a new column to keep the country code data. So we decided to use the char5 column to keep the data. So then next, I'm going to copy this definition here to the same. So yeah, so as developer, I think this column names makes sense. It explains itself what it does. So the next thing I'm going to do is to change my common area, my copybook, to add a field to for the new data. So I'm going to add a 5-character colon field, and I'm going to take out a 5 from my reserved area. And so next thing, I'm going to change my SQL. So I'm going to add phone mobile country code. This is my field, and I have I think I have another SQL. Oops, sorry. All right, so I changed this one as well. I save the changes. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add my code change to the staging area. So before I commit, I will double check And the staging area contains all the files that I want to commit. So these 3 files that I changed earlier, so it's perfect. So I'm going to commit the change. So then I am going to push the change to the remote GitHub repo. So what it does is this event, this push will trigger the pipeline to kick off the the build and the deployment process against my environment. So in this change, I actually made a mistake on purpose. See, in my shop, we do have a business rule or site rule defined. That's all the columns that in the table. It shouldn't exceed 20 characters. So which I voted. I got 23 characters here. So I violated the rules. So the process, the pipeline will fail. So I will I will get a failure. So I did on purpose to show you the business rule validation. So so while it is running, so I want to show you quickly the repo organization. So here you can see on the left, I already cloned my code repo to my local. So we have a COBOL code, copybook, application code, and along with the DB2 schema in the same repo, but under different directory. So this is one approach, and in some of our customers shop, they do like to separate the application code from the DB2 schema. They use different repos. That also works well. So it just need some customization on the pipeline, but it's so either way, based on your choice. And we also keep the pipeline into the same code repo as well. So the pipeline will trigger, believe it's under somewhere, yeah, under Jenkins. So that's the way we keep the pipeline. So with that, I'm going to switch to my mailbox. So I do expect I get a failure. Yeah, here we are. So as developer, I got a email notification. It can be, the notification can also be through the Slack or other communication channel that your shops use. There's plenty of plugins for that in the UCD or Jenkins that you can configure. So in this notification, I get a link. So I can click the link and it will bring me directly to the page that I can check what caused the failure. All right. So then there's the step that fails the deployment, so I can check the output. So as you can see here, I violated one rules, the column name. You can see the column name, so the max length. So as developer, I need to go back to fix my mistake. So what I'm going to do is to use a short name, use phone CC. Right. Going to save this change. So I don't need to change my copybook now. Just need to change my SQL correspondingly. All right, save my change, and then next thing I'm going to commit again. So same thing, I want to double check, make sure I don't make a mistake. push change. So this will trigger another another round of pipeline to do the build and deployment. So as developer, I just wait for another set of notification telling me the outcome from the deployment process. So so that's it pretty much from the developer side. So now I'm going to switch my role to the DevOps engineer. So the first thing I want to show you is the Jenkins server. So here you can see I have another round of the pipeline running now. So in the pipeline, we have a different stage. So starting with the initialization stage, and then extract the source code from the Git repo, and do some of the environment setup, and then kick off the build and the unit testing, code coverage, and the quality check, like with SonarQube and so on. And after everything done, so it will the outcome, the binary modules will be imported into the UCD code station for deployment. And then it will kick off the DB2 schema change deployment first to deploy the data object change, and then following with the schema, the DBARM deployment and the load module deployment. So while it is running, I want to show you the urban code deploy part. This another tool that DevOps engineer will use. So this is the urban code deploy web interface. So it has different applications defined. And so in this demo, we have two applications defined. One is to handle the DB2 schema change, and the other is to handle the application code change. So the deployment is the application for DB2 schema change. So as you can see here, I can review all the history. So right now I have one deployment is running. So it keeps the different environments and also keeps the inventory so that you can check which versions deployed to this particular environment and when it's deployed, and then you can, that has the identifier that you can use to link back to the Git repo, the commit. So basically you will know which deployment request is for which particular commit. So you can easily track the history here. So I think it's almost done there. Let me bring up the history to show you one more thing. So you can see this requests already done. So this is the process, the deployment process defined in the urban code deploy. So it analyzes the data object change by comparing with the target environment. It has the masking support and the cover. So this actually invokes the DOE API to do the comparison and figure out the deployment plan. So in this case, so it passed all the business rule check. So it does not involve DB2 review and approval, but it would involves more invasive change like unload, drop, recreate, load, and so it will involve DBA to review and to approve to proceed. Let me go into this actual process. You can see it's different route. So so in this case, it's a simple alter, so it does not trigger that. So next thing I want to show you is the application deployment. So again, from the history. So it just deployed. I want to show you quickly about the DBARMs and the load modules. As you can see here, it generates the bind job based on the bind cards for this particular environment, then kick off the job and eventually put the load module to the right place. And this one is submit the bind job. So as you can see here, the package bind successfully, as you can see here, so the bind card could contain the qualifier or the collection ID that is environment specific things. So it will pick up that based on which environment you are deploying against. All right. So that is from the DevOps engineer point of view. So the next thing I want to show you is from DBA persona. I want to show you the DevOps experience product. So as DBA, with you can define the different environment. You can register the application and define the teams, define the site rules that you want to enforce. So the environment, this the environment we use in the demo. So the environment is which system you define this environment with against, and the name, and so you can set some the limits, say how many instances you want your team to provision on this environment, and how many you already have. You can also have some of the rules defined here, and another one is the teams that that DBA can specify who are on this team who can operate against each who can do who can apply things, or who can review or change the objects in the instance that the team owns. And say here I have a 2 DBA administrator. I have a different developer roles. You can set a limit here, so that's you can manage at a different level. And of course, you can manage the storage on the team level, environment level, user level, or application level. So the very interesting thing I want to show you is the set rules. So as a DBA, you can today you do that manually, or you have a quick long list, 30 dozens pages or 100 pages, and so for the business rules. And so now you can define those rules in the DOE product and enforce that to a certain application or to a certain environment. And the business rule are like the naming convention or the keyword, the main options, like which bubble pool you want to use, or you could also define some of the complicated rules. It takes the Python style, like you can put a if else, the condition check, and so on. So you can define as many as rules you want and apply to the application or to a certain environment. So this rule will be used to do the validation, and you can enforce that in the deployment process. All right, so with that, so let me switch to one more thing. So as you can see here, the whole pipeline only takes about 4 to 5 minutes. So we remember that Mariana mentioned it's a typical change from one of the insurance customer. So a simple database schema change took about 56 hours. That's the average. So now you can see it's just 4 to 5 minutes in average. So it's a big change. So I think that concludes my my demo. So as mentioned, so the comparing with today's process, it's a many process, the average 56 hours down to 4 to 5 minutes. So it's a dramatic change. So so this this really make the whole development cycle more productive and efficient. So the feedback can be given to the developer immediately in the early stage rather than the later stage. So it accelerates the whole deployment process. I mean, largely. So, is that Maria? Do you have anything to add?
No, I think maybe we are at the top of the hour, but if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. This is a lot of information.
I think our attendees are drinking from a fire hose. So I think there's, we don't have any questions in the queue right now, but do you have a summary slide, or are you pretty much done and I'll take over control?
I think we
done.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it back to do the wrap up. Thank you so much for a great presentation. We have one last question we always ask our attendees as we go forward, and that's where are my polls? Here they are. And the last one is, did you learn anything? We launched this to see if people have learned anything from the presentation, and people are voting quickly. And so we'll close that and share the results. And of our studio audience, 100% of the people learned something. We like to see that. That's fantastic. You've done a great job. And we'll be posting this on our replay blog for those people that couldn't make it today, of course. And we appreciate you taking the time to do this presentation. And of course, we will I'll have the replay up either today or tomorrow, depending on whether or not I go out to enjoy this wonderful sunshine. We had snow on Wednesday, and today we're going up to 65 degrees. So if you don't like the weather in Toronto, you can just wait a couple of days and the temperature will change. So with that, I will thank you one more time. I will cue the end music. I'll wish everybody a great weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for our next presentation from the Executive Director of the Toronto Lab on DB2LUW in 2 weeks' time. We'll come back to hear Piotr speak. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.